The Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007 mandates the Minister of Finance through the Budget Office of the Federation to publish quarterly budget implementation reports within 30 days of each quarter's end to ensure budget transparency and accountability. And also the Budget Office of the Federation was established to provide budget function and implement budget and fiscal policies of the federal government of Nigeria. However, since 2024, there's been a deviation from this fiscal responsibility, which is our focus today. What are the implications for transparency, accountability, and functionality of the subnationals? We'll be answering these questions and more in the course of the program. My name is Leah Katung-Babatunde. Happy Independence, everyone. And as always, we begin the business of the day from the trends table.
The Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, Dr. Imomotimi Agama, has urged Nigerians to take advantage of opportunities in the capital markets to build personal and national financial independence as the country marked its 65th independence anniversary. Agama, in a goodwill message titled Forging a New Legacy of Financial Independence, described the capital market as a critical engine of economic empowerment, stressing that true independence goes beyond political sovereignty to include financial security for every Nigerian. He listed ongoing reforms include the dematerialization of shares, increased retail investor participation, introduction of new asset classes, promotion of fintech collaborations, and reduction in time to markets for securities as part of efforts to deepen financial inclusion and democratize wealth creation. Agama also listed out other initiatives to include international best practices in fund valuation, strengthening of corporate governance, promotion of financial literacy, and a sustained campaign against Ponzi schemes that continue to defraud unsuspecting Nigerians, all targeted at making the market inviting. Nigeria's domestic debt market witnessed a 530% surge as investors oversubscribed the monthly bond auction in September. The Debt Management Office DMO reported total subscriptions of 1.26 trillion naira against the 200 billion naira it offered, with allotment rising to 576.62 billion naira compared to just 136.16 billion naira in August. The DMO offered two instruments in September, the 17.945% FGN August 2030, a 5-year reopening, and the 17.95% FGN June 2032, a 7-year reopening. Nigerians' pension fund assets have surpassed the 25 trillion naira threshold, closing August 2025 at 25.89 trillion naira. Monthly data published by the National Pension Commission (PENCOM) for July and August show the fund first crossed the 25 trillion naira. The upward trend continued in August as the fund rose by about 97.88 billion naira. Combined, the pension funds grew by about 1.26 trillion naira or 5.14% in the 2 months whose data were just released compared to 24.62 trillion naira as of June. The August report revealed that federal government securities continue to dominate the investment mix. The bulk of this was held in government bond, while treasury bills, sukuk, and green bonds made up the balance. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration on Wednesday froze $26 billion for Democratic line states, following through on a threat to use the government shutdown to target Democratic priorities. Shutdowns of the federal U.S. government are hardly unusual, but the one that began after the stroke of midnight October 1 comes with complications as not seen over the decades following the failure to pass the budget in September. At a glance, The shutdown will see the Bureau of Labor Statistics suspension of operations likely delay the release of September jobs and collection of data, while its extension will likely impact Federal Reserve policy makers when they meet October 28 to 29.
Next is our policy conversation on the national budget and quarterly releases. Quarterly budget reports in Nigeria are made by law but have recently faced significant delays and are currently overdue. Historically, these reports have been made public since 2009 to ensure transparency and accountability as required by the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. So what is happening? To make some sense of this development, I have joining me Mr. John Ebikeseye Mutu. He's the coordinator of Democracy Vanguard, and he has led several reform initiatives and is a consultant to a number of committees in the National Assembly, including the Senate Committee on Constitution Review. He is also the executive director, African Parliamentary Resource Center. It's nice to have you, sir, join me for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, what does the law say about these quarterly reports and how did we get here?
Okay, thank you. I think this is a very important topic, and maybe I will want to maybe take it away from the law, but maybe discuss it as a governance issue. Yes, even though the law specifically made provision for periodic reporting of the performance of the budget, especially the Fiscal Responsibility Law, provides for government to, on a quarterly basis, present the report of the budget performance on a periodic basis so that Nigerians can also track the implementation of the budget. And this has been going on for some time as part of our deepening democracy. Like you rightly noted, for the past 3-4 quarters, we have noticed that those reports have not been presented to the public. But why I said I want to move away from the law is beyond the law. Nigeria practices a presidential system of government. And democracy means that government should be accountable to the people. Government should be on a regular basis carry the citizens along in the governance process. And because we practice a participatory governance process, it is expected that government who manages the public resources on behalf of the people provides feedback to the people. So it's an accountability mechanism. It's a means intended to inform the citizens, and so that citizens can also be able to monitor, track, and engage with government in such a way that it's a win-win situation. So when government fails to report or provide information to the citizens, then it is against the spirit of the open government partnership that the Nigerian government signed into. It is an aberration. It's not good for the image of the government itself. If citizens are in the dark and you shield people from accessing relevant information, then we are not practicing democracy, then it means something else. Even during the military, we didn't have it that because citizens were advocating for access to relevant information. So information can be two ways. Either government voluntarily provide those information or citizens ask for those information. And when it is specifically provided within the governance framework and specifically backed by law, then it's incumbent on government to provide those information as demanded by law.
So what does it mean for implementation? Because we only saw late August that Q3 2024 was published. So what are the implications now for budgets implementation?
I think the implications are multiple-fold, especially when you have a multi-year budget operating within a single year, where we had the 2024 budget extended to the end of 2025, the capital components. You have the 2025 budget also implemented. And we had recently that the 2025 budget, it's just the implementation of the 2025 budget capital just started in September. So its implications are, like I said, far-reaching. One, for the audit process. The Auditor General of the Federation is expected, in the yearly basis, especially by the end of September, to present the audit report for the preceding year to the National Assembly. So if 2024 budget is still implemented, as at 2025 September, or even we are moving into October now. How will the statements of account be prepared by the Accountant General's office and submitted to the Auditor General? When will the Auditor General now prepare the audit report for the implementation of the 2025 budget, if implementation is still going on? Secondly, for civil society groups who are interested in monitoring and community-based who are interested in monitoring government performance, if those reports are not prepared and presented to citizens, how do they get the information to track? And what specifically are these reports talking about? One, releases. For instance, projects, capital projects in the budget are to be awarded to contractors and are implemented by those contractors. People need to know whether those funds have been released to the relevant MDAs. People need to know what stage are those projects, have they been awarded? If they have been awarded, to which contractors? It is based on that citizens can now start tracking the implementation. So if those information are not provided, we don't know if monies have been released, we don't know which capital component of the capital budget has been released, we don't know how much agencies have been able to access as part of their capital project, then it becomes difficult for people to track and even provide feedback to government. So even the media will become in the dark. So at the end of the day, governance becomes shrouded in secrecy. So it's really, really a big challenge for accountability. It is a big challenge for transparency. And like I said, and that is why government will say they are doing so much. Nigerians will tell you are not seeing what you are doing. We can't see it, we can't feel it because you are not engaging us. If it is government that will come and be telling performance just on nominal terms, just say we have performed so percentage, and the citizens are not able to verify or validate those statements, then it becomes you against us. And those are the kind of things that opposition parties also raises against government. So like I said, it's not good for the image of the government.
Okay. We saw in recent months also that contractors had to protest. Does this have anything to do with that?
Not just, I think that is also a fallout of that, because when we had that contractors as at September who did that implemented 2024 budget project in 2024, 1 year later, they've still not been able to, no contractor has been paid. It's an aberration. If you gave me a job and we signed an agreement for me to use my resources to implement a project, and 1 year after you have not paid me that money, then it's a big issue. So the question we should be asking is that where did all these monies go to? Why were they not paid? What caused the delays? Is it because the project or there is no money? If that is it, but the federal government told us that they have achieved almost 80% of, I can't remember the exact percentage, of the revenue expectation. So if you have already received all that, why are you not paying contractors? And Nigerians are not able to verify that claim because they are not privy to this information. So keeping people in the dark, shielding people from accessing the relevant or hoarding those kind of information will create room for speculations. So the question is, why were contractors not paid up to September? I think I heard that days after the protest, some contractors were paid, but it's not good for the image of the country. If a year later, contractors are still being owed, what is the fate of the 2025 budget when we're already talking about 2026 budget?
I was actually going to ask you what would be the implication for further budgets, the 2025 that is just starting, and we're already looking at the third quarter of the year.
I think
the fourth quarter, rather.
Those are the challenges that most civil society organizations have raised, and the National Assembly has also complained about that. We are in September, end of September, which is the third quarter. 2025 budget is yet to be implemented, the capital component. 2024 budget is still dragging. So the question is that, in fact, Nigerians have even lost faith. Nobody is talking by now. People have been shouting, where is the 2020s? We expected that by the end of this quarter, or by the first week of next month, we should be expecting the 2025-26 medium-term expenditure framework to be presented to the National Assembly, followed by the 2026 budget. But nobody is talking about that, because even the budget you have is yet to be implemented. So what is the implication of that, like you rightly noted, for the 2026? What will happen to the 2025 budget capital component of which is the one that really matters to Nigerians? Is it going to be rolled over to 2026, or are you going to have, again, 2025 budget extended to 2026 and you have two budgets running concurrently? So it's a huge challenge that the National Assembly will need to investigate, and also the federal government, especially the Ministry of Budget and Plan, need to really come clean and tell Nigerians what the plans are. But for the investors, for the private sector and businesses, it's a big challenge because the economic environment is not predictable. People are not sure of the economic direction of this government based on those gaps. So it's had a huge project for our development. And remember, next year we are going into elections. It's the party primary. So the 2025 budget was the main budget that Nigerians expected to make a difference. So by next year, people were talking about party primaries running into the general elections in 2027. So the federal government really needs to do a lot to be able to win the confidence of Nigerians.
I was actually going to ask you, how can this be remedied, considering that next year, as you pointed out, is an election year, and of course attention will be on the campaigns and all that. How can this lag be remedied?
I think the first thing is Nigerians, first, the federal government really needs to tell Nigerians why there is this delay in the implementation of the 2025 budget. They need to come clean. The federal government, on a monthly basis, from the federation account, shares revenue, and these revenues have increased over the years, and that is one of the key campaign issues or the key successes that this government has claimed, that they raised the revenue profile. So if you are really raising the revenue from January to now, why has there not been budget implementation? Is it a financial issue, or is it an operational issue? Is it that the ministry is overwhelmed? Or is it that the necessary mechanisms for releases or like cash backing, fund releases are the issue? What are the issues? We need to really know what the issues are first. Or is it because they don't want the economy to be saturated by funds to reduce inflation? Since 2025, therefore, budget is still being implemented, they are holding back the 2025 budget implementation so that at least the economy is not saturated, too much cash is not in the system, thereby maintaining inflation. If that is the case, then you need to tell us. If that is the case and it's a deliberate strategy, then it means that the 2025 budget should be rolled into 2026. That will be a remedy. That way, Nigerians will not be expecting massive new projects in the 2025, so the capital component will be rolled in. That way, at least people can know that we have a single budget. So you are going to be harmonizing the 2025 budget and 2026. That at the macroeconomic level will make a sense. Secondly, you need to also put in place fiscal measures that will reduce mismanagement of resources, because at that point, everybody is focused on politics. And one of the key supporting mechanisms will be providing those information so that civil society groups, media can also track and put government officials on their toes. Otherwise, if you continue with this situation where people you're not submitting a report, you're not submitting budget performance in a report, and you're also not telling people how much has been released, then it will be difficult for people to track. And I bet you the 2026 budget will be a budget that will not achieve the objectives it was meant for.
So it means that whichever way we look at it, we have a situation in our hands.
A big situation, and the president really needs to rise up to the occasion. The president really needs to meet with the leadership of the National Assembly and his economic management team to really sit down. Otherwise, from next year, when elections come, so much money will be within the political system. Capital project implementation takes the backseat, and everybody is focused on the dollar. Also will continue to rise. The naira will continue to lose value because of the naira will be dollarized for campaigns and all that. And when the budget is also not delivering on its promises, then the president will have a huge task campaigning on his successes. Otherwise, Nigerians will hold him to task. But like I keep saying, the starting point is for them to be open, for the government to be transparent, for the government to be forthcoming with the relevant information so that citizens and also corporate organizations can support the government in delivering the dividends of democracy.
Okay, does this have any direct implication on the subnationals?
Huge implication, very huge implication, because most states take a cue from the federal. I'll give you an example. Before now, there is the Fiscal Responsibility Law requires that government on a yearly basis present the medium-term expenditure framework. That medium-term expenditure framework is supposed to be a forerunner that provides the fiscal framework that underpins the budget. All the macroeconomic assumptions, the crude oil benchmark, the inflation rate, and all that, and their projections. It's based on that the National Assembly will review, approve. Once it's approved, that forms the basis for the government to now prepare the budget. But we have seen that that has really taken the back seat. In the last government, they presented the MPET quite late. In fact, we saw that when the MTF is presented, they have a very limited time for the National Assembly to pass before the budget is presented. But in recent years, we have seen that the two of them are almost presented at the same time. And this is September ending, we have still not seen the MTF. States have started taking a cue from that. But I know of states that do not even bother to present the MTF again because after all, the federal government is not doing that. The other thing is the issue of the revenue profile. The federal government is supposed to also provide a revenue profile that accompanies the budget. And that also tells us how much we expect, especially now that the federal government has, amended the tax laws, harmonized the tax laws, which is going to form a big component of the budget. So if you're expecting citizens to pay tax, they should be able to know what their resources is going to, their taxes is going to be used for. And because that is not happening, states are also taking a cue. So if we now have 2-3 budgets running concurrently at the federal level, before you know it, you see that states will start also doing the same. There will be no accountability. Federal government is no longer submitting budget performance report. States will also take a cue. After all, the entire federation is not, the federal government is not doing it. Why should we do that? At the end of the day, it makes nonsense of the entire open government partnership. It makes nonsense of our entire democratic principles. Government will continue to be shrouded in secrecy. Access to relevant information in line with the freedom of information will also become an issue. So yes, it has huge implications for the states. And you also know that the states take a cue from the federal government on the revenue forecasting. The fiscal assumptions. It is based on what the crude oil benchmark and how a state will determine how much they are going to be getting from the statutory transfer. So if those information are no longer available, you see states will be preparing their budget, using unrealistic assumptions. I'll give you a classical example. If the federal government says we are producing 2 million barrels of crude oil, and the exchange rate is 50 naira to the dollar, and we are producing, so you can calculate and know how much will be coming into the federation account. By the time you remove operational expenses, cost of revenue, you know how much will be coming into the federation account. States can now know that, okay, based on our revenue sharing formula, we are expecting, 100 billion this year, and it's based on that we'll prepare, especially states that have very limited IGR. And so they take a cue from the federal government budget. So once the federal government at the end of October has not submitted its budget and states want to go ahead, they will use that. And that's why you see that a lot of the budget of the state are no longer realistic because the fiscal assumptions are not realistic.
Well, Mr. Stelly, thank you for these insights that you've shared with us.
You're welcome.
We move on to our education segment, Simplify This, and from there we take you to the local commodities market. And we draw the curtains here. Don't forget that you can catch up with market details and more on our sister website. It is www.marketnigeriatv.com. And also you can catch up with this episode and every other one on our YouTube channel. It is at Saban Media Services. And don't forget our partner stations, Kaftan TV, Global TV Nigeria, and KSMC News. We look forward to your questions, comments, and suggestions to help us serve you better. Until we come your way again, be good out there, and God bless Nigeria.